Will we see the return of Dark Samus in Metroid Prime 4? I think it's an interesting question, for a couple of different reasons. One, Metroid Prime is Dark Samus. The entire Metroid Prime series is based off of a superpower Metroid that became Dark Samus. But apparently, or supposedly, Dark Samus died at the end of Metroid Prime 3, yet we're getting a Metroid Prime 4. How can that be? Does that mean the game is just going to go in a completely different direction away from Metroid Prime or away from a Dark Samus? Or is there somehow going to be a new Metroid Prime? And if there's going to be a new Metroid Prime, will there be a Dark Samus or the Dark Samus? Let's talk about it. Welcome everyone, this is Andres Restart, and as I mentioned earlier, Metroid Prime 4 is on the way, and since it's continuing the actual name, Metroid Prime, it comes with the implication that we will see Metroid Prime to some capacity in Metroid Prime 4. So how exactly is that going to pan out? Well, before we sort of delve into that, I think we should first go into the history of Metroid Prime. So, Metroid Prime, like I said before, became Dark Samus. So at the end of Metroid Prime, Samus fought a super-powered Metroid. This Metroid was genetically enhanced and infused with Phazon all throughout the course of the game of Metroid Prime, and at the very end it was this super powerful Metroid that was even stronger than even, let's say, a Queen Metroid. It evolved even beyond that, and then when Samus finally defeated it in its dying breath or what have you, it pulled off the Phazon suit from Samus along with some of her DNA, and because of that Phazon suit and her genetic makeup, Samus' genetic makeup, and the Phazon around Metroid Prime, all those things sort of combined together, and somehow the Metroid Prime survived and became Dark Samus. So, in Metroid Prime 2, Samus met Dark Samus, and they fought a couple times, and at the very end of Metroid Prime 2, in an alternate universe, Dark Aether, Samus defeated Dark Samus, and it blew up into a whole bunch of small particles, and supposedly, at the time, it died along with the actual existence of Dark Aether. Yet somehow, even though it blew up into a whole bunch of particles in a universe that no longer exists, Dark Samus made it into Metroid Prime 3, and then at the very end of Metroid Prime 3, Dark Samus was basically in control of everything. It was fused with the Aurora unit in the home world of the Phazon radiation phase, and Samus defeated both of them, and once they were defeated, the actual connection to the Phazon was also eradicated, so the corruption within Samus was destroyed, and Planet Phase itself blew up. So with this explosion and the eradication of all of the corruption, it was heavily implied that Dark Samus was no more. Yet, somehow we're getting a Metroid Prime 4, and Dark Samus has all to do with Metroid Prime. The series is called Metroid Prime, it's named after that super powerful Metroid. So then, in Metroid Prime 4, will we see the return of Dark Samus? Will Dark Samus somehow have survived the explosion of Planet Phase and have made it into the events of Metroid Prime 4? Possibly. Now how can that be? Well, like I talked about earlier, in Metroid Prime 2, Dark Samus survived the end of a universe. How exactly? I mean, there could be several explanations, but it did, and we saw it in Metroid Prime 3, and Samus defeated Dark Samus again, and then Planet Phase was destroyed. So then maybe somehow, even though the source of Phazon was destroyed, somehow Dark Samus survived. Maybe there's still Phazon somewhere else in the universe, and maybe even if there's a small little particle left, Dark Samus can regenerate and sort of be magnetized towards whatever Phazon there is in the universe. Seems a little crazy, but Dark Samus is a creature that is far more powerful than pretty much anything we've ever seen in the Metroid universe. So it's conceivable, at least in terms of, I guess, the rules that the Metroid series abides by. That may be the case, and that could be, I guess, a decent enough explanation as to why we may see Dark Samus in Metroid Prime 4. But there's another possibility. Dark Samus may very well be dead, but you want to know what isn't dead? A Metroid that Sylix, Samus' rival, stole at the end of Federation Force. So we know at the end of Metroid Prime 3, Sylix was following Samus, and we know at the end of Federation Force, Sylix stole a Metroid from the Federation. And we know these events are going to somehow tie into Metroid Prime 4. So then, could it be that this Metroid that Sylix stole is going to somehow be genetically enhanced in some way and become a new Metroid Prime? I think that's a high possibility, especially because Sylix doesn't exactly work with the Federation. He stole the Metroid from the Federation. Maybe he'll even get into some sort of partnership with the Space Pirates and they will genetically enhance this Metroid and it will become a new Metroid Prime. That's a possibility, and that could explain away the naming of Metroid Prime 4, because there's going to be a new Metroid Prime. I think that makes a lot of sense. But what if we get both Dark Samus and a new Metroid Prime? How could that pan out? That could be an even more interesting story. So of course I'm just speculating here, but we know there's a new Metroid, and we know it has some significance, and we know that Dark Samus has survived the actual extinction of a universe before and somehow made it to be the main antagonist for a whole other game, so maybe Dark Samus can make it back again. After all, Dark Samus has become somewhat of a staple for the Metroid Prime series. Dark Samus is even its own character in Super Smash Bros. Ultimate. So maybe Dark Samus will return, and maybe we'll also get another crazy superpower Metroid like the original Metroid Prime. I like the idea of getting both in Metroid Prime 4, because the more antagonists, the more enemies, the more crazy powerful, super paranormal creatures that we fight and see just makes the game even more interesting. And on top of that, we're going to have Silex and the Galactic Federation to deal with as well. So the events of Metroid Prime 4 could prove to be really, really interesting, because it looks like we're going to be having a lot of different parties sort of conflicting with each other, and that's really exciting. But a lot of this is speculation. We don't know if Dark Samus will return. We don't know if that Metroid that was stolen from the Federation will become the next Metroid Prime, but I do think it's possible. I do think there's some sort of importance that Metroid is going to have for the events of Metroid Prime 4. And I can't discount the possibility that Dark Samus could very well return. Because like I said, for I don't know, 2 or 3 times already, Dark Samus survived the extinction of a universe. So why can't it survive the destruction of a planet? Albeit that planet was a source of Phazon, but maybe there is still Phazon somewhere else in the universe, and maybe Dark Samus will be attracted to that. I don't know. What do you guys think? Do you guys think Dark Samus is going to return? Do you think that Metroid is going to become the next Metroid Prime? Let me know what you guys think in the comments below. Anyways, everyone, thank you so much for listening and watching, and I'll see you all really soon.